great honor to be with you today here in this great day in Brussels. Great day, especially because we have had the great opportunity and the great honor to listen to President-elect Mrs. Maryam Rajavi and to the important words that she said about values, humanity, and freedom. And it is extremely important in this juncture of international crisis and what is happening, especially in the sea, in the Persian Gulf. It is extremely important to be here today to reassess and underline these values and principles which belong to the Iranian people, to belong to the great tradition of Persia, and which are the core values of the European Union. And it is highly symbolic that we are gathering today in the Robert Schuman Round Point. It is extremely symbolic because on these values the European Union has been built upon, and the new Iran, the new democratic Iran, will be able to reaffirm its reputation and its standing in the international community. Political conditions in Iran, especially in the past year, and since the great uprising of people from the end of 2017, have changed profoundly. And now the regime is closer to its end, to its final end. Every day, people are increasingly suffering because of their economic conditions, because of the lack of freedoms, but their protests and demonstrations continue every day with an enormous courage, enormous sacrifice, and they are made by crowds larger and larger by the day. The Mujahideen, PMOI, MEK, and the National Council of Resistance of Iran, which over the years have been the flagship against the clerical regime, are advancing and gaining a very wide support of the Iranian people. The regime is constantly showing its deep concern for the accrued influence that they are having, that NCRI and PMOI are having, that you are having. And still some people in Europe pretend that there is no alternative to the mullahs. They pretend that the possibility of a regime change is doubtful. That is absolutely wrong. It's not doubtful. There is a viable alternative, and it is the National Council of Resistance of Iran. There is a big difference between Iran and Syria, for example, and the difference is that in Iran there is a strong and democratic alternative to the regime. Here I want to emphasize the fact that all the criteria needed for an alternative, the social base, organization, leadership, plan and program, all of these are in the National Council of Resistance and in the plans of Mrs. Rajavi. To counter the regime and to counter this alternative, to counter the alternative represented by Mrs. Rajavi, the regime tries to befool the air with fake or cyber alternatives, with fake news, which sell a totally wrong idea about the real wishes of the Iranian population. And I will give 3 examples. The first example is that it is false that many Iranians oppose the oil embargo. Every Iranian knows that oil money goes to the regime, and that means to let the mullahs steal the country's resources and fund military adventures abroad. Second, it is equally false that many Iranians oppose the IRGC listing as terrorist. For instance, only the Shah's son or the Shah's regime remnants talk about cooperation with the Revolutionary Guards. This is in the regime's best interest. These are the allies of the regime. Third, those who say that it is false that there is a democratic alternative, a true democratic alternative in Iran, those people oppose the PMOI, which is the main Iranian opposition force. They oppose it in an antagonistic way, entirely in the regime interest, because the regime wants to discredit the Iranian people's resistance and their rightful democratic alternative. Any person or political current which spreads this fake news is complicit in the mullahs' propaganda, serves the regime and is partner of it. Unfortunately, too often, and also the institutions which are around the Schuman place, these persons and institutions often contribute to the spreading of this fake news and therefore become complicit with the mullahs' propaganda. Our gathering today must therefore launch the strongest appeal to the European institutions and to all the European government. The first appeal is to put an end to the acquiescent silence towards the Iranian terrorism, be it from proxies or even from Iranian agents under diplomatic cover. Second, the European institution and the European government must list as terrorist entities the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence, MOIS. They must expel all the Iranian diplomat terrorists, and they must list as terrorists the IRGC and the whole organization of the Hezbollah. These two basic decisions by Europe are needed to contain now Iran, because Iran must be contained every minute in this crisis. They must contain Iran in the disastrous upheaval it fuels in the region and in view of a complete regime change, which must be soon and supported by the whole international community. Thank you.